Welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show with your hosts, Hastings and Mali Shadmehry. Dive into the heart of family law as Andee and Mali bring clarity to legal challenges, celebrate client victories, and share the wisdom of their combined expertise. Get ready for a journey into empowerment and advocacy right here where your story matters.
Welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show, where we delve into the heart of family law and the stories that shape our lives. I'm Mali Shadmehry, and joining me is the ever-insightful Andee Hastings. How are you today, Andee?
I'm doing great, Mali. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Me too. Thank you all for joining us, and we're just going to get right into it. We're going to jump into my favorite segment. The question is, Andee, are you a warrior or a diplomat today, and why?
Mali, I'm feeling like a diplomat today.
Okay.
We had a very challenging case this week with a wonderful client, and we had to make it clear to the other side that we were just going to go to trial. And as a result, it settled, and it settled for something better than I think she may have gotten in court. And so for that reason, I'm definitely feeling diplomat today.
Excellent.
How about you?
I am feeling diplomat, even though it's hard for me to say that because I am a warrior at heart always. But as we say here all the time, great trial attorneys make even better settlement attorneys. And sometimes I find that I have to get myself into a diplomat mindset to benefit my clients the best, even though Mali Shadmehry wants to be in court. That's where I want to be. If I could do that every day, I would. But here's why I feel like a diplomat instead of just a warrior this week. I've got mediation in a case next week, the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm very excited for it. Actually, it's in one of my very most contentious cases. It's been going on since last summer. We've had multiple trials already throughout this case, a lot of money spent. We've got a little boy that we need a conclusion in this case. So I am preparing for that mediation. We also have a trial in that case scheduled for December. So I'm hoping we can settle probably not all of that case, but at least parts of it. The financial piece of that case, I'm hoping we can settle next week and lead my client into the holidays with maybe a little bit of, a sigh of relief and some relief for this little boy, and maybe cut down some of her costs before we go to trial in December. So that's why I'm feeling like a diplomat today, trying to manifest a settlement next week, the day before Thanksgiving. So wish me luck.
You won't need it, but I sure do. I wish luck to the other side.
Yes. Well, awesome. So we are going to get going into our topic of the day, and that is going to be our origin story. Where did we come from? How did we get here? So I really want to hear from you for starters. Just tell us about where did Andee Hastings come from in the legal world, and how did we get here today?
You know, I hate talking about myself, Mali, so I will do my best. So I graduated law school in the last century and started out as a domestic violence prosecutor. It was a job that I loved, very near and dear to my heart, and I transitioned into regular civil litigation for a few years and got very intense experience taking depositions. And then I went into family law, and I've been in family law ever since. And of course, we met at a very important time a few years ago. We had a lot of clients, a lot of really amazing clients, and needed help. And I was lucky enough to meet you. And it was all she wrote because we're like peaches and cream.
So why is it at your core that you think you've stuck to family law? Why family law?
Because it's the same reason that I started out as a prosecutor. It's important to me to feel like I'm helping people every day. And I was able to do that as a domestic violence prosecutor. I feel like I'm able to do that as a family law attorney as well. What about you?
Why I'm doing family law?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my origin story, why I picked family law, I get asked that a lot, actually. I knew from when I was a child that I wanted to be an attorney. I just felt it in my heart. And I'm one of those people that when I know what feels right, it's going to happen. That's my intuition. It's God. I'm ready. So I knew, and it was always in college, it was either I was going to be a horse trainer or an attorney, because I'm a horse girl. Do not make fun of me for it. And my parents were looking at me kind of with like wide eyes, like, what is this girl going to do? And they're not the type to force me to do anything. But I remember vividly sitting in the car with my mom in college and saying, well, I've always felt this calling to be a lawyer, so fine, I'll just go to law school. And she bought me the LSAT book to start studying. I'm pretty sure I did not study and made it through the LSATs, whatever. I did not determine until I was midway through second year of law school. No, it was my first year of law school, that I was going to be a family law attorney. And why that was because I was in a relationship in my first year in law school, and we broke up, and it was the end of the world for little baby Mali. And I was crying, and I went to have a meeting with my legal writing professor, Professor Jaffe. Shout out to you. I saw her recently and got to tell her this story. She never knew all these years. But I walk into her office. I'm in tears, and she's like, what is wrong? She was sassy, and I'm like, I can't even talk. And she's like, are you mad because you made a B or a C, whatever it was, on this paper? And that's what I was there to talk to her about. And I was like, no. And she's like, it's a man, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah. And she pulls tissues out of her drawer and cookies. And she's like, you want cookies? You want tissues? Like, let's go. And I'm like, okay. We talk about it. And she's like, you are too good to let a heartbreak bring you down in this career. You're going to get it together. And she basically picked me up by the seat of my pants, spanked me on the behind, and pushed me back out on the field. And I did. And I thought, wow. And she used to be a family law attorney. And I don't know if she still is. Maybe she is. But I thought, I want to be able to do that for people. I am a pep talker. I am an energizer. And I know what heartbreak feels like. I know what it feels like to be in an abusive relationship. I know what it feels like to feel unsafe in your own skin and to need somebody to, again, pick you up by the seat of your pants and push you back out there and go, girl, go do it. And it changed my life. And I'm thankful to her for that. So after that, I structured my classes around family law. And I also knew I needed to be a courtroom attorney. I knew I would be bored and getting in trouble if I sat at a desk all day and drafted contracts all day. That is not where I'm supposed to be. And family law is notorious. If you're going to do family law, you better be ready to go to court. And if you're looking for a family law attorney, you better find one that loves court, because it's more likely in those cases you're going to end up there, and at least need somebody that has the chops to do it and likes to do it. And so that really was fitting for me. All my courses in law school, I was bored with a lot of the stuff, but if it came to get on your feet and pretend like you're in court, that's where I was shining. And family law just was perfect for that. I started practicing in Cumming at my first firm I was at, and I loved it. I got great experience. I hit the ground running in the courtroom. I started specializing in high asset divorce right out of the gate, so I learned how to handle these more complex estates and custody situations. I was just bred to be somebody that takes the challenging cases. And I got lucky, ended up at a great firm in Cumming to do that, and really got my confidence and started bringing in my own clients. And it was time for me to move on from that firm. And this is how I meet Andee Hastings. It's one of my favorite stories. I leave the one firm and I put my resume out the next day, and Andee Hastings and her previous partner called me and interviewed me on the phone. Long story short, they hired me that night. My dad's like, Mali, do not accept the first job offer that you get when you need to get other options. And I did not listen. Sorry, Dad. I love you. And I'm glad I didn't listen because when did I join you? When it was Wagner Hastings, that was the name of the previous firm.
Correct. Early 2019.
Did I mess up my hair with these headphones?
You did not. Don't even worry.
Still getting used to the headphone game. So, all right, I joined then, and I brought some clients with me. I started to learn. Andee was my mentor, my boss, and she coached me, and we got our groove together. We started trying cases together. Oh my gosh, we have the best stories. And she really helped me kind of level up, give me some more finesse. I started to learn I can be a bit of a bull in a china shop, and I'm very comfortable with that. I like to come in hard. Here we are. And Andee helped me to develop more finesse and really think through how we approached cases. And she just, again, you helped me level up. She said, okay, sweetheart, we're not playing checkers anymore. We're playing chess. And then when I was ready, it was, we're not playing chess anymore. We're playing 3D chess. And the other side is still over there playing checkers. And that's something we still work through today. And we train our attorneys and our staff here today. And so that was, I knew as soon as I started with Andee, I was in the right place. And a few years in, I became a partner. And then we changed from Wagner Hastings to Hastings Shadmehry. And we've spent a couple years getting this brand and this firm culture into where it is today. But I think what needs to be known is a little bit more about your background in family law. And Andee doesn't like to talk about it.
I told you I did not.
And I clearly do. So sorry. But Andee, she has a very polished pedigree as a family law attorney. So can you talk to us about that? Where you were before Wagner Hastings and what type of clientele you worked with and how that's sort of formulated what we do here now?
I can. Thank you for being my role model in this episode today, Mali. Okay, let me back up. I apologize. So I went to law school at the University of Georgia, and I took over the mock trial program. I took it over. I competed in every trial-related activity there was. If there wasn't one available, I created it, and then I competed in it. And then I went to become an assistant DA and tried cases every 2 weeks of every month.
When you were still in law school?
Oh, yeah. My first case was a jury trial, and it was the day before my third year of law school because I was working in the prosecutorial clinic while I was in law school my second and third year.
Crazy.
That was fun. It was a DUI, which are very complicated. Anyway, I didn't know enough to know that it was hard. I just did it. Yeah. Anyway, so was there for several years, transitioned, like I said, into civil litigation, traveled around the country taking depositions 4 or 5 days a week, which is great experience that you don't get otherwise.
And it gets you seasoned in the airport, which is something I suck at. You should see Andee in an airport. She knows her way. Sorry.
I have a rhythm that we're going to follow.
Yes.
Anyway, I transitioned out of regular civil litigation into high asset complex divorce litigation. I remember the first case that I had, there were about $20 million in assets, and I learned from jump how to deal with very complicated, difficult cases involving experts and battling experts and those sorts of things. I was lucky enough to have that opportunity. And from that point, I transitioned into another law firm that also did and still does high asset, complex divorce litigation cases. A lot of celebrity clients, which is special. It's fun. And just a lot of people with complicated problems. And so I learned a particular way of practicing law, practicing family law. I'm very detailed. I will not leave any stone unturned. I want to go into a courtroom knowing every fact inside and out. I prepare, and there's nothing that I don't want to have in my arsenal for my client. And so when Mali joined, she had that natural spirit. We were the same, I feel, as how we try cases. And so I took the guidance that I had been given by true giants in the area of family law and made that part of our firm culture, how we practice law. And we've been doing it ever since. Is that better?
That's fantastic. And I think people need to know. I mean, the expertise that your family law firm should be bringing to the table, this just doesn't come from, somebody got out of law school and started family law. What we've built here, for example, and not everybody has to have a lawyer like this, but you want one, trust me. How we are structured here, how we run our litigation teams, how we think on an everyday basis, this has come from generations of some of the top family law attorneys in our state over the years. It's stuff you've learned from your mentors, me from mine. We're combining all that information and putting our magic on it. So that's just a little bit about our history and who we are and how we ended up over here. And like Andee said, I think that when Andee and I got together, it was magic from really almost day one. Because we both are always rowing in the same direction at the same rate of speed, always. And I think that's something that not a lot of people in business might get to experience with their business partner. And I say that because it puts a special, healthy cadence to what we've created here. And we'll talk more on that later. But now we're going to get into just a couple of family law specific topics. 2 topics today. And the first one is attorney's fees. I want, Andee, for you to discuss with us the topic of attorney's fees and just give us some basic information. One of the biggest questions we get from people we consult with, potential clients that consult with us, is, well, are we going to be asking for my attorney's fees to be paid for by my ex? So can you talk to us about that? Give us some general tips and information about fees.
Absolutely. The answer to that question is we can, and whether or not they will be awarded depends on the court. But we're obviously going to be viewing the case from the very beginning with an eye towards seeking an award of our client's attorney's fees at the conclusion. I feel like another question that they have contemporaneously with that is, how much is this going to cost? And that is a very reasonable question. From my perspective, what I tell people is it depends. And I'm not trying to be a slippery lawyer when I say that. The reason it depends on the complexity of the case, in my view. How difficult is the other side? And that's not something we can necessarily control. How litigious are they going to be? How complicated are the assets, or complex, I should say, not complicated? And, are we going to need to involve expert witnesses, that sort of thing? And that can all drive the cost of the case. So sometimes it takes getting into the case, oftentimes I would say, getting into the case, starting to assess the players on the field and how they're going to conduct themselves until we can start to get an idea of really how much it's going to cost. What about you? What are your thoughts, Mali, on that?
Very similar how I talk to my, consultation clients about all of that. You cannot estimate. You just can't. You don't know what hurdles you're going to have to jump along the way. But a couple of I always tell them, like, okay, here's some consumer advice for you as you are shopping for lawyers, and here's the things that you need to know. First of all, and this does pertain to fees, sorry, it's not going to sound like it at first, you don't want a dabbler. You don't want an attorney to handle your domestic case who practices all kinds of stuff. You want someone that specializes only in family law. We eat, sleep, breathe, literally dream what we do. We know how the law works. We do this stuff quickly every day. This is what we do. When we go against somebody that dabbles and they might do a little bit of family law, a little bit of criminal, we love that. We will eat them for breakfast. And I'm so sorry to any of my opposing counsel that might see this, but I will. If you're dabbling, I trust you do not know things like we do. That's been my experience across the board.
She's not sorry, by the way.
No, I'm not. I just want you guys to be safe. And you need to know this. You are signing up for something that these lawyers, your family law attorneys, we are reaching agreements or trying cases that are going to impact you and your children for the rest of your life. It's an investment. When you pick an attorney, you've got to find the right army to be having your back, okay? Without that, you're going to end up agreeing to something or going to a trial and getting something that's not fair if they are a dabbler. Just truly, that's been my experience. So with that, you get what you pay for. You're going to be looking, especially if you have a more complicated case, you're going to need a lawyer with the chops that can do it, and you need to expect to pay for that. Their hourly rate is going to be a little bit higher, probably, than the lower end attorneys with maybe less experience and not the chops. Pay attention to that. So what you can expect, and now we're from Atlanta, so, we're Atlanta divorce family law attorneys. So a lot of what I'm teaching you is based around, where we are here. And what you're going to see is that the lawyers have an hourly rate. They're billing you by the hour. So whatever the lawyer's hourly rate is, anytime they work on your case, they are billing you for that. If you email them, they're billing you at 0.1 increments. What tenths of an hour increments? 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. That adds up. And so you can also expect that typically what we see for family law firms is that you'll sign a retainer agreement and you pay a retainer. You pay a monthly retainer. And what you're typically going to see is an evergreen retainer, which is what that means is you pay your retainer, your attorney, based on what's discussed at the consultation. They're going to come up with a game plan for you and tell you, all right, based on all of this, here's the retainer amount that I need. There's really no formula to that. They're going to base it off the needs in your case. And you're going to pay that monthly retainer, and you're going to get a bill every month in your case that shows you what your legal team did. The paralegals, the associate attorneys, the partners on your case, what did everybody do that month? And good attorneys, they're reviewing those bills before you, the client, even see them. So they can make sure that the team is working efficiently and all this stuff, and the billing's appropriate. And we then we render the bills, and you're expected to replenish your retainer monthly. So if your retainer is $10,000 a month, you got to keep it there every month. So that means if you get a bill in December showing you that in November your team billed $2,000, you're going to have to replenish $2,000 to always keep it at $10,000 every month. That's kind of how an evergreen retainer works. And that's a question we get a lot. And I kind of like people to know that. I think knowledge is power. So fees, I guess the last thing I'd say there is, yes, we're going to seek fees against the other side in your case. Almost by default, we're going to ask for that. Good litigators are going to be watching for fees the entire time. If somebody's taking frivolous stances in the case, then we are going to be seeking fees under the frivolous litigation statute at the right time in your case. So you want a seasoned litigator, trial attorney that knows how to watch for how the case is progressing so we can better calculate how and when we're going to seek fees against the other side in your case. But there's also the potential to seek fees not only at the end of your case, but also in the middle of your case, at a temporary hearing, something like that. So there's the takeaway is there's always room to go get fees throughout the pendency of your case, but you've got to have a lawyer that knows when's the right time to go do that. There's very specific sets of facts and different statutes you can seek them under in family law in Georgia. So, we get fees in a lot of our cases. I got one, I'll never forget it, a trial a couple years ago where the dad was wanting to take away all rights of our client just because our client made an OnlyFans account. She did. She made an OnlyFans account. He wanted to punish her for that. Judge did not like that. The dad lost, and he had to pay $25,000 in attorney's fees to our firm. So got to be careful. Don't take stupid stances, and don't get a lawyer that's going to take stupid stances because it will subject you to potentially having to pay your ex's attorney's fees.
Practice tip.
So we were going to hit on one more topic today.
That's alimony. Do you want to talk for a couple of minutes, Mali, about what are the factors that the court considers? We have clients all the time, I feel like, that ask, am I entitled to alimony, and how is that considered? What are the factors?
Yeah. So unlike child support in Georgia, which is a bit more formulaic, you plug numbers into a worksheet, spits out what child support should be, and there's caveats to that, of course, but more formulaic. Alimony's not. Alimony is based in Georgia on 3 different factors. That's the length of the marriage, the need for alimony, and the ability to pay alimony. So the court's going to look at all 3 of those factors and weigh whether alimony looks reasonable. And alimony can be rather hard to get, harder than people, I think, typically assume. And so basically what that means is the longer the marriage, potentially you're looking at a little more alimony. Generally, if it's a good alimony case, which should make sense in a minute, if it's a good alimony case, you're typically, what I see is that you're looking at getting about a third, you're getting alimony in an amount like a third to 2/3 of the length of the marriage would be the amount of time you're potentially looking at getting alimony, but it really varies by case. And the longer the marriage, then potentially the longer you're set to get alimony. There is such a thing as permanent alimony, but it's very rare. Have to have some very special facts there. And a lot of times my clients think that the alimony piece to their case is the most unfair because they're not educated like y'all are about to be. So we're looking at alimony for maybe a third to 2/3 of the length of the marriage, but very fact specific. The longer the marriage, the longer you're going to probably get alimony if it's a good case. And how we determine that is, like I said, 2 other prongs: the need for alimony versus the ability to pay alimony. The person needing alimony, what we do is we create a monthly budget. It's called a financial affidavit. We look at expenses. We look at anticipated expenses. A good family law attorney is going to be able to actually do not financial planning with you. We do not do that. We refer to financial planners and accountants and all those things, but we're able to help talk through those topics. Like, what is life going to look like for you? Are you going to get work? The court's going to look at, are you able to work? They're going to expect that you work. If you're able, they're going to expect you to work. Even if you were a stay-at-home mom or dad forever, if you're able to work, the judges are usually going to expect you to get back out there, is usually my stance, and do what you're capable of doing. So we look at potentially what you could earn and what your monthly expenses are going to look like after divorce, what child support you may be getting potentially. And then we say, okay, well, how much are you in, do you have a gap for your expenses? How much do you really need once we take on all of that into account? Then we look at the paying party, the breadwinner. How much do they earn? We look at their net income after taxes, and that can become complicated if you're dealing with business owners and all kinds of stuff. But we look at their net income and what they're capable of earning. We see all the time people that are purposefully underemployed, especially during a divorce or leading up to it. And trust me, we're able to prove that. The court is still going to say, no, I see your historical earnings, and you don't just get away with saying you earn less suddenly. That's called sudden income deficiency disorder. And the courts pick up on that, but we see it a lot. We look at what their net income is. We also look at what their reasonable expenses are, and whatever's left over is going to be doled out in alimony potentially. So as you can see, it's just very fact specific, a little wishy-washy. And another kind of tidbit of advice I give to people is adultery is a bar to alimony. So if the person wanting alimony has committed adultery, then that is going to be a bar to alimony.
If it's the cause of the separation.
Correct. And adultery can be very hard to prove. You have to basically prove and have very real proof that the person wanting alimony actually had sex with another person. And that's another topic for another day. We'll do an adultery episode. I know that'll be a fun one. What about you? What are your alimony tidbits?
I mean, I would say my thoughts are similar. Obviously, again, the court considers the length of the marriage, each party's earning capacity, their relative contributions to the marriage. And a lot of times we'll get one side that says, well, I earned all the money, and so I should get more of the money. And that's not how it works in Georgia. That's also moving into equitable division of assets, which we'll talk about on another day. However, one of the contributions that the court can consider when awarding alimony is the contributions to the marriage in the form of homemaking and child rearing. And it's a different world now, I would say, than it was probably 20 years ago with regards to alimony. I agree with you, Mali, that folks are generally expected to contribute to their own support. If you've been a stay-at-home mom, your ability to jump back out into the workforce might be somewhat limited. You might need to get a degree or up your education in something that you had done previously. There's all kinds of factors. So that's also considered, I find, in the length of time as well as the amount of alimony. And so if we're dealing with a case that is an alimony case, we're looking at those factors from the very beginning. We're having our clients gather the information that we're going to need to assert their position. If there's training they need, we want to find out what that is, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. So we're just gathering evidence throughout the course of the case from the very beginning. Remember what I said about preparing. We're preparing from the second we become our client's lawyer. And then we put the case forward either through negotiation as a diplomat or in trial as a warrior.
Yeah. And that's how it works. One thing I get asked a lot and that I think is very important before we conclude is that conduct is not really a factor in alimony, except for the adultery piece I told you about. If you want alimony, then you better not have committed adultery. But conduct is relevant to equitable division, which is how do we split the assets and debts? We can look at conduct for that. But a lot of times people are like, he or she was just so terrible to me. Like, I need more alimony. And that conduct is not part of the alimony analysis. It goes to equitable division, how we divide the assets and debts. And then, of course, custody and the children conduct is going to relate to that.
And we'll definitely talk about that in another episode.
And what I'm about to say is probably some people might not like it. I'm going to say it anyway. You know, our laws were drafted long ago, and laws take time to change. And the alimony, my view on alimony and how the law is drafted here is that it is much more protective of the breadwinner, because I think the breadwinners drafted our laws. So keep that in mind. That's a little rant that I have. I mean, it's just geared towards the breadwinner. So anything else on that?
Not today.
Yeah.
We'll delve into that in more detail. There's lots to talk about.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on episode 2 of the Hastings Shadmehry Show. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes.